here's my setup for today. We have the 60mm macro lens, f2.8 by Olympus, okay, and from the sensor plane, from where the sensor is, that's about 10 centimeters long. It's about 10 centimeters long. And the minimum focusing distance is 19 centimeters, so it says. And basically I'm focusing on these anthers, which are just about another 9 centimeters. So they are from the front of the lens, so they're 19 centimeters from the focal plane, roughly. So we're really close to the minimum focusing distance. And here's a little shot of my untidy writing, which you can pause at some point. And here are my introductory pictures, okay, and then we're going to take some more pictures and see what we get as I mount this camera in this mount. Okay, so here we go. I mean, often actually when you take your first photo, you see that you get a beautiful bokeh. This is the first photo I took of these flowers earlier today, or yesterday as it is now, and it just came out kind of beautiful colors. It's not showing how nice that is on this phone, because the reproduction on this phone of colors is not that nice or that accurate right now. So we're looking at the back screen of the Olympus EM5 Mk. There is, though, on the back screen of the Olympus EM5 Mk, you can see this moire fringing, of course, which you always get when you get a pixelated image taking another pixelated image. But there's actually some other fringing. There's some fringing in the gradation of colours on the back screen of the EM5 Mk. And I've never noticed that before. On the left hand side there's a bit of fringing. Can you see that? Forget this fringing down the bottom. Just look at the subtle fringing in the left hand side of the colours. And I can certainly see it up here and down here. And I've never noticed that on my EM10 Mark IIs. So I don't know whether this back screen is as good as the EM10 Mark II back screen. Okay, but anyway, we're going to get to a few photos I took of that flower. Okay, so we're going to compare high-res mode and non-high-res mode. So here's large superfine, okay, and we were under very low contrast conditions, under artificial light, 1.3 seconds f4 ISO 200, and then I went to high-res mode, 50 plus raw, and then I went to ISO 1600, which is actually the maximum that you can use in high-res mode. And then I'll show you why, because if you go to ISO 6400 in normal mode, you get a really crummy image, especially on low contrast subject like this. So bad that you can't really see any difference between large superfine, large fine, and large normal plus raw. I'm photographing in raw so I can mess about with the images later if I want to, but I needn't bother actually to record the raw image at all. There's no real need, but I've done it anyway. So this is what you can see with the first image, the large superfine. Okay, large superfine, and you can see that there's little rice-shaped grains on these anthers of this flower. Okay, it's a beautiful flower. These are flowers from the bouquet for the 25th anniversary after my mum's passing, 14th of November 2022 for the 14th of November 1997. And it's now coming to the 22nd of November, so these flowers are getting on a little bit. It's actually the beginning of the 23rd of November. So these are the last surviving flowers of this bouquet. So I decided that I would take those and photograph them while they're still around. So let's have a look now at the high-res image. The high-res image is a bit better. You can actually see really the outlines of these rice grains. The first image though was at f4, and these images are now at f5.6, so there's a little bit more depth of field in this image. And then, so that's at 50 megapixels, okay, 50 megapixels high-res shot. Now, if you go to the maximum ISO for the high-res shot, you get this. Okay, so this is 50 megapixels high-res at ISO 1600. And it's still not bad, actually. But there's not a lot of difference between that and 25 megapixels once you get to ISO 1600. The image at 50 megapixels is hardly better than the one at 25. Okay, so that's the 50 megapixels at ISO 200. And then let's go to 1600. It's not quite as good. And the 25 megapixels is not quite as good again, but there's not a lot of difference at 1600. Now let's go to 6400. This is not high res because you can't shoot high res above 1600. And this is why. This is LSF plus RAW. Okay, so large superfine, okay. And it's all mushy. Okay, you can't really see those grains at all. It's all squished out with noise reduction artifacts and the rest of it. So if you shoot large fine, it's almost the same. If you shoot large normal, it's not much worse. That's 8 times compression at large normal, 4 times compression at large fine, and 2.7 times compression at large super fine. Let's have a look at the noise. There's tons of noise in the image. Okay, lots of noise in those images. Going back to the 1600 ISO 25 megapixel high-res shot, there's far less noise in that, even though it's only 2 more stops on the ISO and it's only 25 megapixels. Let's go to the 50 megapixels. Can we see some noise in the 50 megapixels? There's a bit of noise there. Look. Okay, 50 megapixels, there's some noise. In fact, you know what? I think that the 25 megapixel high-res image is a little less, this is 1600 ISO, is less noisy than the 50. That's the 25 and that's the 50. Okay, that's the 50. 8,000 by 6,000, and that's the 25. 5,760 by 4,320. Okay, well, let's take some photos. Let's stop that and take some photos. And I keep moving the camera, so we need to focus. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn a light on to give us a bit more contrast in the image. Okay, and I'm going to shoot at 200 ISO. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the ISO auto and shoot at 200. And then I'm going to choose from the super control panel. I'm just going to go to the ordinary shot. So I'm going to choose a self time and I'm going to take one shot. As I've done before, 4-second self timer, silent shutter. Okay. And I'm going to shoot large normal, then I'm going to shoot large fine and large super fine. Now look at these. I mean, look at the number of shots to the left. Okay, obviously as you go from super fine down to normal, you got more shots because it takes up less memory. Because I'm shooting raw as well, there's a factor there that includes the raw. You'd get a lot more pictures if you didn't include raw. So I'm going to do a video on that, how much you can get, how many images you can get in a card in the different picture modes. But I'm going to start with LN. Okay, LN plus raw, and I'm going to shoot an image. Now, am I going to have correct exposure, or am I going to give it an extra third of a stop? I don't know. I think I'm going to give it an extra third of a stop. Okay, let's have a look at that, see if it looks okay. Well, it looks okay. Okay, that's just LN. Okay, let's try large fine. Large fine. Instead of doing these separately, you could actually just take a raw image and develop them in each of these, develop them to each of these resolutions and have 3 separate images developed from your raw image. But I'm just going to do it this way, so I'm showing you I'm taking the photographs. Large super fine. Let's have a quick look at those. Just a quick look at those. So that's the large super fine. Okay, large super fine. Large fine. Large normal. There's not really so much difference, is there? The large fine looks as good as the large super fine to me, which is why I'm beginning to think that super fine might be redundant. Looking at this little bit here particularly, even the large normal doesn't look too bad. I should have checked what aperture I was using. I'm using f5.6, so I haven't got fantastic depth of field. Never mind, let's just carry on. I'm going to now go to high res mode. And I'm going to choose, well, I've already chosen it. I want to choose 25F plus RAW actually. Not that it matters. And I'm going to take a shot in high res mode with a 4-second delay. So if I go into high res mode here, which would be on the main menu, number 2, advanced shooting, high res shots. I've got a 4-second delay there, and I've actually got a charge time in between the 8 different shots of 0.5 seconds. I could actually get rid of that because I'm not using a flash, because that will speed it up a little bit. Okay, good, that's what we want. So let's focus again. Take the shot at 25. It shows you as it's taking the shot. So don't think the shot has come up and you can move the camera, because you can't. Okay, so that's the shot. This is the shot. Does that look better than LSF? I think so. I think it looks a bit better than LSF, to be honest. There's sort of less smearing on the image, even though the depth of field is the same. It looks a little clearer to me. Okay, there's not a great deal of difference, but there's some. especially on the right hand side of the image there. Okay, let's go for the biggie. Let's go for 50 megapixels. Depends probably precisely where it's focusing. Processing. And then I'm going to shoot wide open at f2.8 because the image is a little bit softer at f2.8, but this is at f5.6. There's not a lot of difference actually between, that's LSF, that's 25 megapixels, and that's 50. It's arguably very, very, very slightly better. It'll be interesting to magnify this up further again and see what we get. Very little difference between those two, is there? It's a little bit, very, very marginal difference down on the right hand side there. Oh, it's very marginal indeed. Let's have a look at the noise. There shouldn't be much noise anyway because we're shooting at low ISO. Okay, can't really see any noise. Well, there's not a great deal of difference at the closest focusing distance between the two high-res modes at 25 and 50 megapixels, to be honest. Maybe a tiny bit, but not much. 50, 25, LSF. See, LSF has got that, and maybe it focused in a different place. But this little grain here near the middle is still well in focus, and the rest of it looks pretty much the same. Yeah, we may have had a slightly different focusing position there. So maybe I'm going to use manual focus then. I'm going to use manual focus. Do I get manual focus now? Yes, I do. Absolutely wonderful. I get manual focus. And I'm going to magnify that up a little bit more. And I'm going to, and you can see actually that if you turn the focusing ring, you're focusing on different parts. So it's certainly not square on by any means. Okay, I'm going to shoot. This time I'm going to change the aperture. I'm going to shoot to f8 this time. And I'm going to go for the 50 megapixel shot. Okay. Maybe I'm going to bring the exposure down a little bit. Yeah, okay, to 0.3 again. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm focused halfway across like that. Okay, and then immediately we'll go to the 25 megapixel shot. And you can hear the sensor moving during the shot. Hear it breathing. And then we'll go to the, we'll just go to the LSF plus RAW, not bother with the others. Just make sure that's still in focus. Oh, it's still in focus in the same place, okay. That's quicker, of course. Okay, let's have a look. LSF plus RAW. LSF plus RAW. 25. It's a little bit clearer, I think. LSF plus RAW, 25 and 50. Not a lot different to my eyes, just a tiny fraction better than 25 on this relatively low contrast subject. And we already established that the 25 might have less noise if you're shooting at high ISO. So maybe shooting with high ISO at 25 on high res shot can sometimes be a better idea than shooting at 50. I mean, we can try that right now. In fact, we are going to try that right now. We're going to go up to the maximum. You see it's grayed out after 1600. No, it isn't, because I'm shooting LSF plus RAW. Let's shoot LSF plus RAW first. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on this end here. I'm going to focus on this end instead. Okay, now I'm going to go into high res mode. And I'm going to shoot 25 plus RAW. And if I was to select the ISO, I can't go beyond 1600. Everything else is grayed out. Everything else is grayed out beyond 1600 on the ISO scale. So if I choose 1250, 1600, 2000, forget it, I'm back on auto. And auto will not allow you to go above 1600 either. No, I'll move this silly camera to show that. Let's do it again. Auto, there you go, it's selecting 1600 because the light's fairly low. But I'm, of course, shooting at 200. And I'm determinedly shooting at 200. Okay, so 200, here we go. I'm going to focus on there and 25. Oh, it's a little slower. Actually, I made a mistake then. I meant to shoot at 1600, didn't I, silly boy? So we've done that one already. I'm not cutting the video. Right, that's just to shows I'm a bad photographer. Okay, let's go for focusing on this part again here. And ISO 1600. 25 plus RAW, that's what we want. So let's do it. We'll get more noise, of course. And finally, 50 plus RAW. Video's getting long. Never mind. Okay, let's see what we've got here. We're sort of focused over here somewhere, aren't we? It's not that fantastically better. So there's LSF. There's 25 plus RAW, 25 high res, and there's 50 high res. There's not a lot of difference, actually. I'm a little bit surprised that it isn't better than that. I don't know whether that's to do with the resolution of the lens, or whether that's to do with camera shake, or to do with whatever. I really don't know what the exact cause of that is. There's not as big a difference as if you're shooting at a bigger distance with something like the 17mm f1.8 set to f5, or the 25mm f1.8 set to f5.6. But you're certainly getting a little bit extra by shooting with the high res, you're certainly getting a little bit extra, but you're not getting an awful lot more. And then when you take the ISO up, you start to lose it. So let's have a look at the noise levels on these two images. See if we can see some noise. This is in the 50 and there's a 25. I think the 50 again is a little noisier. There's a little more speckle there. There's a 25 and there's a 50. Of course, you're recording more pixels, so you're getting half as much light to each pixel. So 25 is better at high ISO than 50 in terms of noise. So the ceiling for the ISO, I would say on the 50, is maybe about, you know, it's below ISO 1600, obviously. You probably don't want to go above 800 or even 400 or 1000 or something. You don't want to go to 1600 because the 25 is considerably better at 1600 than the 50. What about on the LSF, normal resolution? The normal resolution, you've got some noise reduction, some patchiness there. On the 50, you've just got more speckle, and on the 50 you've got a lot more speckle. On the 25 you've got a bit of speckle, and you've got patchiness on the normal resolution. So at ISO 1600 you're not getting that much advantage from shooting the high res image, and especially the 50. See, the 50, you know, looks worse in places than the LSF. So high resolution for close-up macro, yeah, this is a very testing situation though. This is a kind of an extreme test. Let's just move this over here a little bit. Look at this side here, because that bit is actually quite sharp. Okay, so there is another part of the image right over to the left hand side, and that's at 50. Getting high mag on this, aren't we? That's at 50. That's at 25. See, 50 does look crisper than 25. And that looks crisper than 20. Definitely a bit sharper than 20. There's not really that much in it though. 25 is sharper than 20. Maybe a little bit more speckly. And 50 is quite a bit sharper. But again, it's more speckly around here. There's more noise. Okay, that's the end of today's experiment in attempting high-res pictures of anthers on very nice yellow flowers. It's all yellow, yellow on yellow. Good night.